Okay, great. Thank you. I think it's worked. Yeah, it's worked. Great. Okay, sorry, you wanted to ask me something.
Yeah, no, I was just curious to know how you got into this and how you prepared like all this interview series and how you ended up asking people about biohacking.
How did I end up? Well, I started, obviously I'm in my third year of university, so I finish in like 1 month.
Okay.
And I study history and philosophy of science. So
Okay.
science and society, science, politics, history, everything, all of that together, philosophy. And I was writing philosophy on head transplants. So like the possibility of doing a head transplant. And I sort of got interested in transhumanism.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to, and I came across biohacking quite a while ago. And I just thought, not a lot of people in my department especially knew about it. And I was interested in it because I thought it's like the most real life example of sort of transhumanist philosophy that there is. So I just thought, there we go. This is what I'm going to do, and it's been going good.
That sounds pretty cool. Yeah. It's quite interesting. I mean, you said philosophy and what else of science?
History of science,
Okay,
history of medicine. Cool. That's what I love. I love history of medicine, but I ended up.
Well, two things that are kind of coming closer. So I think, yeah, that's good.
Yeah, interesting. I really like it. I really recommend it. And what do you do? What are you in the UK? As you said, you're in Bristol.
Yes, yeah, I'm based in Bristol at the moment since a year and a half. Actually, I was traveling and I'm still traveling, but I got stuck in Bristol for a while. And in the meantime, yeah, I'm digital designer by day. So it means like design graphical user interfaces or voice user interfaces for whatever platform to interact with digitally. So it can be mobile apps or websites or speakers you talk to or these sorts of things.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I got like a lot of side projects going on. So that's one of these also is biohacking. It's like this Nfc implant I have. It comes also after a kind of a research doing since a few years. So yeah, enjoying the sunshine lately, which is pretty cool. And Bristol is an amazing city. So yeah, a bit of all of these things, yeah, together.
Okay, cool. Do you like living in Bristol? Yeah, you said you like it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I'm still traveling. I will travel again like in next month. But yeah, Bristol's quite cool. If you haven't been there yet,
no, I haven't been before. Okay, great. Okay, let me see what I have to do.
To be honest, I didn't prepare any answer.
Oh no. I don't want to prepare anything. It's really relaxed. Okay. If you can't, I just want to start with a disclaimer and say that, of course, I might be coming in with a lot of media assumptions, but obviously that's part of the reason to do the research. And if you ever feel like you're being repetitive, don't worry. It's all useful for me anyway. So So just if you can't think of an answer, don't feel like you have to agree or disagree with any of the questions. Obviously, like.
Oh no, yeah. Usually I kind of say that if I don't agree with something. So,
yeah. Say.
Yeah, that's cool.
Right. Okay. Are you ready to start?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. All right. So just for the first question, I'd like to ask you, how would you define biohacking?
Biohacking. Well, it's a term which is pretty defined already. So like in the average society, people kind of have an idea what that is. But to me, biohacking, if you analyze both terms together, bio stands for biology and hacking is for hacking, of course, which is like the act of like finding simple solutions to problems and getting answers and make life easier and in an open source way. So basically opening up ourselves to experimenting with ourselves, not in a scientific way, but like in a creative way. So basically in this case, it comes down to technology implanted into the body. But I believe it goes much beyond that. It's not just like a piece of hardware into your body. It's like how we deal with the medium we are using in technology, and at the same time, how we get to live harmoniously and in a sort of balance between nature and technology at the same time.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so I have this list of, it's a list of identities that I have found within my research. So in articles, papers, or Instagram bios, Twitter bios, things like that. So in ways that people refer to themselves. So I don't know if you can see them on the screen.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. You are aware of some. Are there any that you didn't know? Are there any that you could add to the list? And which of them are most relevant to you and why? If you had to.
Are they supposed to like explain the concept of what we are doing as grinders?
No. These are all different ways that people describe to themselves. So you meet people
that say,
oh, I feel like I identify with the term cyborg, for example.
Yeah, sure.
Are any of these relevant to you personally?
So definitely, I didn't know about the thinker one, and think it's less popular, or maybe it's just me outside of the thing. But yeah, definitely, biohacker and cyborg are the two most popular ones. I think I identify myself as a grinder, which is what most people do and how we call each other in forums and other stuff. But definitely when it comes down to talk to people who is not into biohacking, you either say cyborg, which is cool as well, or you either say biohacker, and then you have to kind of explain what that means. But yeah, those are the two most used. Yeah, transhumanist also is used a lot in business, I guess, because it's kind of like business or formal environments where people know what they're talking about already. So yeah, this three
for you yourself.
For myself is either cyborg or grinder.
Okay.
Yeah. And cyborg because it's easier to explain to people.
A little, yeah. And anything else? Do you like those labels or?
Well, I don't like labels in general, to be honest, but I think we need to have like a couple of words that identify ourselves in order to like explain to people what that is, but also like differentiating between people. I think it doesn't really make sense because in the end we've all been cyborgs since ages. We've all been doing like all sorts of medicine, the treatments, or like even do it yourself, like medications and pills and stuff. It's all like interacting with your own body, and it's kind of a technology, which is a medium, some sort of technological tool that you use to solve a problem you have or solve a situation you're facing or all these things. So yeah.
That's really interesting. Thank you. Okay, so what made you get involved in biohacking practices?
Well, I think it all started when I was at uni a few years ago, like something like 5-6 years ago. We were looking for, I studied like new technologies and media in an artistic field, so it was an Academy of Fine Arts, and we were kind of experimenting what was possible at the time with technology, with like all the mediums we were using. And doing some research, we came across like a few companies that were starting to do this. Actually, a couple of years already, they were doing this. So for example, there is one based in Germany, it's called DigiWell, and like finding out what they were doing. So all of the things they were working on towards human augmentation, like they say, upgrading humans. And so we started doing some research, and it turns out there is a lot of things happening from this, microchip implants, but also to like Samsung's developing like this kind of exoskeleton for people who can't walk anymore, or like these sort of things, which are really useful, I believe. So we came across all of these new technologies, and as new technology students, we were like seeking, like emerging technology and stuff like that. And we were like trying to find a way out to make digital interaction simpler. So like kind of forgetting about the technology we have, like laptop and phone or all this stuff, and trying to make interaction invisible if possible. So like I can still interact like digitally between one another, like human beings each other, or between a human being and a device or something like that. So focusing more on the act of completing the action rather than focusing on the hardware we're using, such as the phone, to get around the problem, So yeah, so we started like developing this concept. We called it blank. It's like an idea of where you have like a blank card inside of your body, which is what a lot of people is doing now with this XMT implant from Dangerous Things and other manufacturers. And basically the aim was to make technological interaction invisible and kind of abstract, and kind of give that kind of extra that makes it look like magic, or like kind of make you interact in a more natural way.
Okay, great, thank you. And can you tell me what sort of hacks or mods that you've either experimented with or designed? You mentioned a little bit about implant, but yeah, could you expand and explain a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So, well, I've always been attracted by this and by also like interacting with the body, not only with technology, but like piercings and other stuff. Like, I guess the two things sometimes go along. And yeah, at the moment I have an implant in my left hand, which is an XNT. It's like same place where majority of people put it, and it's the Nfc implant that is. It's actually the most popular and is what people look for in order to interact with with a bigger range of devices. And there are some other chips like dedicated to, I don't know, unlocking secure doors and like places like such as offices or stuff like that. But more like this one gives you more ability to experiment with it. So at the moment, yeah, working a bit with this one, trying to find way out to create new ideas, new way of interacting with technology, and at the same time with looking a lot around scanning brainwaves activities. So there are like a couple of headsets, like there's one called Emotive, guess, don't know if you know that, but it's quite popular. They have two range of readers, so you can just basically wear them on your head, and they have like 6 or 12 points of attachment, and you can pair with an app and these things. And at the same time, like all of the most important, I think, is to have have a balance between your daily life. So in the end, like eating healthy, like avoiding like food that is either carcinogenic or dangerous in general for your body, like drink plenty of water, like the basic things that's why I was saying like kind of a balance between nature and technology, because we can augment our bodies as much as we can, but at the same time, if we don't respect ourselves as human beings first, thing is not going to work, I think. So yeah, spanning across this range. Yeah.
Great, thank you. So could you tell me a little bit about what's the purpose of your participation in biohacking? In other words, why do you do it?
Well, I do it because I believe in evolution, first of all, but because I'm a designer and I like to find new ways for people to express creativity. And I believe technology and all the devices we have nowadays they are just a medium for us to complete actions, to solve problems, to get what we need and what we want, basically. So making this device or this medium more and more invisible, I mean, less and less invasive in our daily life, that makes us focus on the interaction itself and the tasks we want to do, not only like professional tasks like being on time and have your reminders of your appointment, but just like sharing value, for example, sharing content with your friends or stuff like that, that if could be immediate, that would be much more interesting. So for example, there is a really cool experiment by the MIT lab, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and they like this device that basically reads your thoughts. They say it's basically reading the impulse of your muscles near your mouth to create kind of like telepathy. That's what they aim for, I guess. And yeah, I got lost. Sorry, what was the question?
It's fine. No, I just said, why do you do it?
Yeah. Basically, yeah, to enhance these interactions and make people more talkative and interactive between one another, focusing a bit less on technology, focusing a bit more on human beings.
Okay, great.
If that makes sense, yeah.
No, it does. And have you ever had any special circumstances or experiences with any of your hacks? Any unexpected outcomes or unforeseen results, maybe with your implant, or anything notable, an experience that you've had with it?
Well, the most notable thing, since I try to apply that in daily life, is like reaction of people when they find out you do this, and they always ask why. And the curious thing, the fun thing that made me think a lot is that everybody, maybe not really at the beginning, but everybody gets involved in that and gets really interested. So they try to understand how it works rather than saying, oh no, this is black magic, go away from me or something. I mean, it really drives interest in people, and the majority of people I talk to, they'd love to do the same. It's just too early because they wait for other people as an acceptance I don't know, these sort of things, to be part of a group that share the same thing. But yeah, most notable, well, nothing really happened physically. It stay there, and then I can interact and change the content in it and interact in different ways. But definitely the reaction of the people is the most interesting part.
That's great. Perfect. Thank you. And so, have you undertaken any practices that you consider successful? And I'll let you determine your own definition of success. So obviously it can be functionally, socially, commercially, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. You mean through this?
Yeah,
through this implant or through biohacking in general?
Biohacking.
Well, the whole success of the thing, I think it's a community thing, because the approach is like what everybody call like open source. So the idea of having like a shared content and shared platforms for everybody, and accessing them when you need them, and then give everything you have, everything you know about it, in order for other people to access that. So yeah, I believe that's the most important approach. And yeah, this is tricky. Could you repeat the question, please?
No, I just said, have you undertaken any practices that you consider successful, and then in what way?
Yeah, well, my job, first of all, as a designer, involves all of these technologies. So what I consider successful is, for example, learning what technology is in its most like technical way, so what they call it the hacker way, and turn it into something more approachable for humans, something that humans can consume, like a technology that people can understand and that can interact with. So I'm working at the moment with this platform to make people understand what they can actually do with microchips. And it's going to be an app, a mobile app, because mainly nowadays people who is not really into biohacking since the beginning, they interact with their microchip via phone, basically, with apps they use, and they allow you to free program your chip. So definitely, yeah, interaction. My job is interaction and interface experience design. So designers, so bringing all of these things to the people who don't know these things. Yeah, that's successful, and kind of realizing now that it's going quite well. Yeah.
That's super interesting. Thank you. And how do you see yourself situated within the scientific community, if at all?
Well, I see the scientific community, I always saw it from far away, because I was into the arts field and design. So, but I've always been attracted, so I try to step closer to them, one step at a time. And now I feel like maybe I'm in between like design and science, design and technology, in order to make them co-live. And at the same time, I have this kind of freaky side that tells me, oh, we need to save the planet at the same time, like eat healthy and like plant more trees and all this basic stuff, basically. So I think I sit somewhere in between these two things, technology and nature, as a designer.
Okay, great, thank you. And do you participate in the biohacking community? And you already mentioned a little bit, but if anything else you'd like to say about how you participate within the biohacking community?
Well, there are plenty of forums you can reach out to, like from Reddit to bespoke like brand forums they have on their websites. And yeah, there are not many people around you can meet like face to face, but sometimes it happens. So there are like gatherings and events around Europe you can attend, and even if they're not bespoke for biohacking, it turns out like people interested in some sort of technology, they are also interested in biohacking. There's been a conference in the US for a few years, even though now it's kind of shutting down.
Yeah.
But mainly online through forums like Facebook groups, the same Facebook group where you reached out to us, and yeah, mainly those. Yeah. Also, I had my microchip in a studio from this girl from Leicester, UK.
Genova.
Called Genova Rain.
Genova.
Yeah, she's a superstar now. She's super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, went there, and that also gave me a lot. Like meeting other people doing this face to face is always better, because we can type in comments and trying to understand each other. But when you have a deep conversation, it's much more impactful. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. So we're going to go into like the second, I call it phase 2 of the interview. And it's going to be a little bit more about like identity, I would say.
Sure.
So what are some current perceptions that you feel society has on biohackers?
What? Sorry, can you say again?
What are some current perceptions that you feel society has on biohackers?
That I feel?
That you feel society has on biohackers.
Okay, so the vision society has around this.
No, the perception. So how do you think society, how do you think society feels about biohackers in general?
Well, I think most of the people, when they hear this the first time, they react like really badly, because they like the idea of putting something into your body. For most of the people is still something kind of not acceptable, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But as I said, the most interesting part is that when you kind of explain what's the potential and why you do that, they kind of get interested. So if there is this kind of barrier in between, if you manage to like go beyond that, people kind of understand and they can embrace this technology as well. It's not something we have to push for, I think, because it takes time and it needs to. Fair enough that it needs to take time, because people need time to accept and need, as I said, other people around to accept the same thing and be part of a community.
Yeah.
So, and then especially people is really scared of someone else putting a chip into their body. So that's why we always say, hey, it's yourself deciding about yourself. It's no one else like trying to take control over you. And there are like plenty of myths that we try to burst, because most of them are based on sci-fi movies and like people talking about things that don't even exist. So, yeah, you just need to have a chat with someone who's into it and you'll find out.
Yeah. Okay.
I guess as you're doing right now. So.
Yeah, exactly. So how do those kind of perceptions make you feel? Perception. So how do those sort of opinions make you feel?
Well, I am quite confident people is likely to accept this thing, because when you explain, as I said, they understand. So it gives me like confidence to believe in this on a kind of long-term future. And on the other side, I've been really, well, it depends also where you are geographically, because I've been doing research and interviews around this project in Italy, for example, where I'm from. And in Italy, people don't want to accept this, not even from far away, might be the church, might be whatever, I don't know. But at the same time, there is a small community in Italy doing this. So it's kind of getting everywhere, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. It's kind of tricky, because people need to understand the value before putting their money into it, their effort into it. And we're still experimenting in this. We don't know ourselves where we're going, to be honest. At least I talk for myself, but I believe many other people. And yeah, we need to give concrete examples of what people can do with this technology and how it can improve their life.
Great, thank you. And how, in your experience, do you think that biohacking could interact with or affect a person's identity? So,
well, there are many ways you could interpret your identity, because technically and legally for now it's like your ID, basically your passport or like this. And there are many cases in where, even for example in China or any other places, where like you have some sort of hub that brings all of your identity, like your physical one, but also all of your digital identities into one place. I'm not saying the way they're doing it is the best way, but for example, this could help a lot to simplify the situation, simplify, for example, all of your logins, all of your accounts online. Now, I guess all of us have like loads of accounts we don't even remember passwords to, or like all these things. So if like working on a simplified way to log in for your online platforms or provide your details, for example, if it was all brought into one simple interaction, that would be definitely helpful. And there are companies working on this already. There are beta chips out there, and there are programs that are coming out. And it seems that the new chip is going to be released in summer sometimes. So we all waiting for that, because in the end, it, like all of the biohackers, all of the people who implant chips in themselves are like, hey, when are we going to be able to pay with our hands? Basically, leave your bank card at home, or even if you leave your phone around, you still have an identity. You still can be identified, and you can still perform actions in society, like paying, for example, but also sharing your phone number with a job opportunity or with a beautiful girl or whatever. And then, I mean, it's the freedom of going around and be able to interact with the digital world, which is what we created. And I mean, if it takes over before we can kind of understand how it works and have control on it, could be a problem. So better doing it now.
Okay, right. So if you think back to when you first got your first implant, or your first mod or hat.
I still have one only.
So yeah, exactly. How did that make you feel when you first got it?
Well, I was really excited because the research I mentioned started a few years ago. It stopped for a year, but then got back on it. So it was like 2-3 years of research. And before getting into this, because could just Google a page and see, oh, implantable devices, and just go for it. But that would be kind of silly, kind of stupid, I think, because you don't really know what you're doing. So understanding a bit of what these devices are able to do and understanding why you want to do it is really important. So at the point when I arrived, I was really, really excited. I met the best implant I don't know how it's called, but basically the person who implants the microchips.
Yeah.
The best around, I think. I don't know, she's amazing. So she was also like explaining, introducing, and kind of making feel you like in a good environment, and that you have a good reason to do that. So definitely felt really, really good. It wasn't scary. It was a bit like, yeah, I need to put the needle in my hand, but I didn't do it myself, so it was fine. It's like a piercing, or actually it's technically less dangerous than a piercing. And the moment where I got it, I felt like, yeah, cool, now I am upgraded. Now I can interact with devices. But the real thing is that there are not many receivers yet out there, especially around cities and places that you can interact with. So still kind of experimental. So for example, like in Sweden, you can put your train ticket into your hand. So that's really helpful. And it's really cool that people actually let you do this. I mean, like a government or society. Because for example, in the UK, it's a bit limited at the moment. So I don't know where we're going, but I think we are shaping our way. So yeah, that makes me feel confident you can do pretty much whatever you like.
Okay, cool. Thanks. So in your practice, is there a sense of becoming or unbecoming? So by that, are you achieving either a pre-existing self or developing a new self?
Well, I think I am myself. I'm the same person with just more capabilities technically, but with, most importantly, a more open view on what technology can offer, and more probably open-minded on the relationship between technology and our body. Because we've all been doing it, because when it comes down to a pacemaker or another medical implant, it's like, I have to do it, otherwise I'm going to die, or I'm going to feel really bad. So I'm going to do it. But maybe people don't realize that is already an implanted device, and it doesn't change anything with this. We've been experimenting for ages, like since the 1950s. And I mean, it's, yeah, again, sorry, I lost the question. Don't want to lose around, like go around in circles.
No, it's good. I asked, do you feel perhaps that you are achieving a pre-existing self or a new self? And you kind of said that you just felt the same, like you are
the same person. Yeah, exactly. Which is like same feeling of when you go like have your first piercing, you feel like, oh yeah, now I'm cooler, now I have something to show. And in reality, it's just yourself as the same person. And what's inside your brain, inside your soul, is really important. It's not like the hardware you're wearing, the body you have, the clothing you have. So yeah.
Cool, thank you. So do you think that identities created through biohacking need protections?
Definitely, yes. Every sort of identity needs protection, even though we are in an open source era, or we are going towards an open source era, and we are trying to share as much as we can. At the same time, I myself, I mean, I need protection for myself, especially because we live in a society that claims to offer that, claims to make you feel safe, and claims that you can rely on them whenever you need it, even though not all the time, to be honest. But definitely we need protection, and it's what amazing platform is working at the moment, which is like, you ever heard of Vivo-Key?
Mm-hmm.
Is another company working on this encrypted microchips, basically. So definitely, I think the way they're doing it is quite interesting. I think there's still a long way to go before we can rely on this technology for all the identity values we have. But it's, for example, we have like a lot of new phones now that have face recognition, face ID, and that's not secure at all. It hasn't been for ages. It hasn't been like with the first experiments Samsung did with like 2D images, and even now that we have a 3D scan, still is not that secure. And as is the fingerprint, maybe slightly more, but still not secure. So we need to create new ways to validate the not transactions only, but to validate like pairing you to a receiver, your identity, your serial number. So definitely, yes.
Okay, great, thank you. So what value does your body have to you?
What value does
your body have to you?
Have? What my body have?
What value does your body have to you?
Oh, to me. Okay. Sorry. Okay, so, well, my body is the medium in which I live life, I think, because it what allows me to walk around, talk to people, interact professionally with people, allows me to dance and have fun, and at the same time, like, build something physically. So I definitely respect my body. I try to respect it as much as I can. As I mentioned, like a healthy diet, for example, I believe is really important, together with a lot of exercise and a healthy lifestyle in general. And I don't think that putting something like a technology device into your body is not respecting your body, because I mean, if we have the possibility to do something, it means we can at least experiment with it. I'm not saying it's good to do, but we can experiment. And instead of experimenting on someone else, as we're doing with cosmetics and all these things, I mean, animals, we should just experimenting on ourselves if we really want it. The body is the machine we have at the moment. Who knows if one day we will all be like transplanted into robots or whatever else. I have no idea, but yeah, definitely respect your body if you want to live healthy and happy.
Okay, great, thank you. And are there any principles or ethics or rules that you follow in your practice, or just in general?
In biohacking practices, or in general?
Yeah, in biohacking, or do you have any principles that influence that? Your thought?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, need to be ethically driven, first of all, because if it's like navigating in the dark, it's kind of tricky, because you could hurt someone, you could hurt yourself, you could, I mean, lose yourself as well. So good practices is always remembering who you are, I guess, and always remembering where you're going, what your values are, if you have any, and if you don't, maybe it's time to get some. So, like, for example, as I said, eating healthy, it's like a value you have with yourself, but also you need to have some values to respect the people you have around and the society you live in. So, for example, not hurting each other, not being violent, and if you have something to say, feel free to say that, but without hurting anyone else. So kind of being also socially active and trying to drive change without pushing too much for it. So, for example, as we saw the Extinction Rebellion riot in non-violent manifestation in London. And yeah, I think the most important is to be consistent with yourself. So if you have values, don't change because people tell you to change, and stick with your ideas, but do it respecting everyone you have around.
Cool. Thank you. And what are your thoughts on bodily autonomy? So
Sorry,
autonomy.
Autonomy, automation.
No, as in like bodily freedom, like kind of yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I believe it's something we should all achieve in terms of like self-consciousness, because, for example, being able to feel free with your body, do whatever you like with it, respecting it at the same time, and eventually sharing it with someone else or with situations you have around. That's the best we could get. For example, there is a lot of discussions around sexuality lately because of teenagers do it really quickly, and like a lot of seen in TV and a lot of, so I think, as we said, I for example grew up in a really conservative society in Italy, then coming to UK and seeing that it's slightly less conservative in different ways, of course, but yeah, being free to be yourself, basically, and express yourself as you like without feeling scared of being judged and everything is something essential if we want to build up a healthy society. So, for example, with homosexual people or transgender people, all the LGBTQ, anything, I think we all have right to express ourselves. And if someone is coming to tell you, you can't be like that, you can't feel free, just screw them. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. So free to do whatever you like. Maybe because I grew up in an arts environment, we are more like, yeah, just if you want to go out and run naked in town, just do it. So now if this is the meaning of free body you mean, but like...
No, it works. Yeah. No, it works. Yeah, don't feel like you have to stick to my, or what you think my definition is. It's important that
that's cool. Cool. Yeah, because I'm trying to give value to like life in general, not biohacking itself, because biohacking is medium. So
no, it's good. I need that more, because I think that so influences your belief in biohacking anyway. So it's more important to know general as well.
Yeah, exactly. That's cool. Yeah, also because, for example, I work also as a video maker with some other guys, and we also make like video clips for musicians and artists, and a lot of them are into like expressing themselves, for example, and they maybe don't have a medium to do that, like being outside on platforms. So whenever people is being showed off to other people and other viewers acknowledge that they're doing something they like and they feel good doing it, that's really good. That's the moment where you succeed, I think. So that's another example of success. For example, like a good video where this guy is crazy, he wants to express himself, and he managed to do it in some way.
Yeah, definitely. Great, thank you. And who is responsible when something goes wrong in a hack?
The hacker himself or herself, definitely. And if you do it on yourself, it's just yourself. There is a big disclaimer when you purchase this sort of implants and stuff, since I mean they are secure, they go through a lot of test batteries, and they are approved, and they're like sterilized and everything medically related. But in the end, it's a practice that is not being tested yet many times, and we don't have records of years in order to prove if it's safe or not. So you do it. We haven't had any problem yet, but they definitely dangerous things. That's the name of the brand. And yeah, so just think twice before doing it, basically, because it's your own responsibility.
Cool, thank you. And what are your thoughts on, you already mentioned a little bit about this, what are your thoughts on sharing in relation to biohacking?
I think sharing is one of the most important things in life, because if you live all your life alone, maybe you have to do good, but after a while, I think since we are a sociable animal, we need to share content, we need to share experiences, we need to share interactions. So for example, just sharing a fun video you see somewhere, if we would be able to do it instantly without going to take your phone, I mean, maybe you're watching it on the phone, but like open WhatsApp, share, open the link, and all of these practices, they take down a lot of excitement about the video itself, and then when it got there, I mean, it's not the same. So sharing is definitely really important, and whatever you want to share, the concept of sharing is good, because also we're going towards like trends such as co-living and co-working that is already happening a lot, and it's because probably we realize we need to live with other people, share with, work with other people. Otherwise, if you live your whole life in a box room in London or whatever, it's not really the best feeling what could make you feel the best. So sharing through these implantable devices could help us to share content more quickly, give more value to it without giving value to the resolution of the screen of your brand new phone or this bullshit. Sorry if I can say that.
Okay, great, thank you.
Most importantly, experiences. Yeah, by the way, sharing experiences. Yeah.
And you talked about this a little bit, but how do you think being in the UK or living in the UK in your case affects biohacking?
Well, I think it's quite cool because UK is one of the first countries to adopt this, even though now we are stuck in this because Sweden, for example, is taking over. They're really fast and they're investing a lot in these technologies, and in the US, of course, because the US is always the biggest. There are quite a lot of, at least for the Western world, I know US, UK, and Sweden / Finland, they are the most into these things, and Germany, of course. So yeah, living in the UK, it's cool because there are a lot of researches as yours, for example, at what there was at the University of Reading a decade ago. So there are plenty of limitations, but the real limitations is just our way of interacting with this. If we had like devices to interact with this around the cities, there wouldn't be any. And of course, being in the US helps a lot because most of the conventions, most of the things happen in there because there are the most people. But yeah, at the same time, there are no real limitations. It's just ourselves. It's just, of course, the new government with all these laws are kind of tricky. But there is, for example, in the same group where you reached out to us, there is an amazing guy who just came up with a great concept of like interacting and triggering other actions. So that was in the US and can be shipped to the UK with no problem. So if we are the first ones, we just go around and try to see how to use this technology and to invent new interactions. As I said, there are no limits. Okay. And if the government tell you can't do something, like for example in Germany there is an example of a guy who wanted to implant an extra leg because he's missing a leg. He wanted to have a microchip in it and he couldn't do it because German laws are quite stricted. At the same time, companies and society and the government itself need time to understand all these things, so we just don't have to push for it. We just need to introduce people slowly, I think.
Okay, cool. Thank you. And you also talked about this as well, but if you could just expand a tiny bit, how do you feel about limits being imposed on what biohackers can do?
Well, limits being imposed in anything, it's kind of a bad thing. I mean, there's need for limits, like for example, speed limits on the street, but like limiting people's creativity, that's not good at all. I mean, that's not something we should do. We should actually expand creativity rather than limit it and put it into a box. It's just that governments are scared of people, of creative people, but because then you have riots and you have all of these things. But I think, yeah, we shouldn't put any limit on ourselves. And if someone's telling you, no, don't do it, I mean, I'm not telling people do illegal things, but I'm telling if something is not what you think is right, if you have a good mindset and if you respect the society you live in and people you have around and yourself, first of all, then just say no to the limits and smash that limit.
Okay, great. Thank you. We're almost at the end. Sorry that we've run a little tiny.
No worries.
Almost done. But okay, yeah. So, yeah, this is just the last little bit now. So would you like biohacking practices to be adopted more widely?
If I would like it, or how?
No, yeah, would you like it?
Definitely, I would like it. Yeah, I would like to everybody to try these things out and see how they feel and see what they can do with it, because it's like only through people, only through the imagination and creativity of people that we can find out what we can do, what we can become, and how we can feel using this technology. For example, if you think about the smartphone, how it changed our life. I mean, it's incredible. It's incredible how now I just think about a friend of mine and I send a voice message on WhatsApp and send a picture or a selfie or whatever, and just this thing make us interact really, really quickly and make us feel like a stronger relationship. So the same time, the same thing should happen with these biohacking technologies. I think it's just a matter of time for people to adopt, because the trends are clear, the researches are clear, we're going there. So yeah, as like there are these big companies experimenting with neural implants like Neuralink, like Elon Musk and Emotive and all this EEG stuff that can scan your brain waves. So I think the real aim is to get inside of our brain, and that's the most dangerous and scary thing, because of course it's kind of delicate situation. So yeah, I'd love to see people, but I don't want to rush this thing.
Yeah. I interviewed a scientist who says that's his next goal as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Next goal, but it's also really, really dangerous. So we need to do a lot of research around that.
He has to do it on himself first before anything.
Sorry, what? I missed that part.
He said that he will only do it on himself first.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was saying. Experiment on yourself, not on rats or animals or other humans.
No animals, no animals. That's really
exactly. I'm glad you say that.
It's the worst. I'm like, die. No. Okay. And where do you think biohacking is going in the long term and the short term?
Well, in the long term, it's going to explode like crazy, I think. And as we said, like brain implants, bigger exoskeleton implants for people who had accidents or stuff like that. And definitely we are going to evolve and become cyborgs in order to survive, I guess, because with the rise of AI now, which is still pretty low, I have to say, it's not that is super hyped, but with the rise of AI and machines being able to develop themselves, and maybe nanotechnology coming together with quantum computing, which is going to be crazy. It's going to take, I mean, quite a while, but in order for us to survive in this kind of upcoming era, we need to upgrade ourselves. We need to follow the pace of this thing. So we have to, yeah, definitely accept the evolution of and include machines and robots inside of our lives. And on the short term, I don't know, I think more people is adopting this because it's kind of a cool technology, but I kind of feel weird sometimes because people try to put it just because it's cool, but that doesn't give real meaning. So in order to have a good and successful application of this into society, we need to educate people and tell them and give them some examples of what they can do or how they can interact, because otherwise it would be like, yeah, I got the chip, and then what to do? Nobody knows unless you experiment on yourself. And that's also the cool part, but some people is waiting for other people too. And when it's going to be a product for the mass, for like the majority of people, it's going to be really dangerous, I think, because that's the moment where technology kind of takes over, when everybody adopts that. So I think for now, short term, we need to dedicate quite a lot of time on development and on creative development, because we need creativity to live in a healthy and happy place. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. And what's next for you in your practice? Do you have any plans or next steps?
Yeah, definitely. I want to be in the beta of the next product with the ones that technically and hopefully is going to be to make you pay with your hands, with your microchip. And I'm working now with different kind of interactive technologies. So for example, as I mentioned, the balance between nature and technology. I'm working with a company who makes vertical gardens, and I'm doing the smart part of the garden. So like the interaction with like irrigation and like feeling like the humidity of the soil, the temperature and the light and all of these things. And at the same time,
he keeps on. He's like, I want to redo everything and have it just like that.
Yeah, well, no worries. If you want, we come along and a microchip enabled smart garden. That would be
love it.
Basically.
There we go.
that would be super cool. Yeah, I think we're going towards a good direction. Yeah, yeah, and yeah, for example, like interacting through your microchip with this. Like for example, you go back home and you unlock your door through your microchip, and which I don't have. I would really love to have, but I'm renting. So. And like at the same time, for example, your microchip's been paired with your house, and your house can interact with the garden as well. So for example, turn on the lights or some sound coming out from plants. We have sensors now that allow you to hear when like the soil is getting dry. So for example, being able to interact with this wherever you are, and being able to let your house know where you are at home or where you are away, or all these things, which you can do partly with your phone, but technologically wise, I think the phone is stealing a lot of our identity. Mm-hmm. And if we could do all of these things we do already through an invisible device that you really forget about, because once you have it, you forget about it. Mm-hmm. And yeah, that would be much more interesting. And would love to have a network of devices that can interact each other, so you can give your own identity, but you can also like read identities from other people if they want to share all of these things.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. So that's the end of the interview. But as the last question, I want to ask you if there is anything that you would like to add, or that you think I need to put in my research. Like, is there a message that you have? Or?
Well, I think the most important thing, as I mentioned already, is to have values and to be conscious of what you do. So when you work with these technologies, the most important thing, I think, is to forget about the technology itself, mm-hmm. and to focus on what we human beings are, where we are living at the moment, and how we can interact one another to create a better world. So this is just one really tiny thing, the microchip implant, for example, one really tiny thing in a whole pot of interactions and things we can do to live in a better place and live in a healthier society. So for example, food, I mean, biohackers are really into food, but we eat shit every day and we don't even realize it. So we should just like pay attention to what we eat. For example, pay attention to the air we breathe, and don't try to not lose all the nature we have. And like focusing on all of these things, including biohacking at the same time, that would give a nice big picture of what life could be in 20, 30 years time. Mm-hmm. So remember who you are, don't be taken down by society, have values and live healthy.
Perfect. Definitely. That's great. Okay, that's it. I have no more questions, but I'd like to thank you so much for doing this. It was super interesting. I think I was really happy because I think you kind of got the questions past. Yeah. Because I think a lot of people, when they respond to my questions, they respond in terms of the functionality of how.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think a lot of my questions, I didn't really quite mean that. I think I wanted people to perhaps think kind of beyond, does it work or does it not work?
Yeah. So, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I imagine it was all focused around that. Technically, it makes sense because, I mean, it's technology. You need to make it work practically. And a lot of us as developers, that's why I'm feeling like I sit in between, because being a designer and a creative artist, if you want, it's kind of give you a different point of view on the thing. It's not like developing the best tech ever. It's like really being able to express yourself. And this helps a lot in what we do, I think. Yeah, I really enjoyed talking about it, and yeah, hope this can help. Yeah.
Oh, it's almost finished. I feel like tired and dead, but it should be good.
Yeah, I imagine, but it's going to work. No worries. You're gonna have a badass research. It's going to, yeah. I was just curious to know if you were like presenting this somewhere or sharing it with the uni you were studying with, or like have a secret plan you can tell anyone about it.
No. I'm not doing I'm literally just writing my research, so doing the dissertation.
Okay.
And then I submit it and it gets marked, and then maybe if I do well, then they note it, like they might say, oh, this. But no, it won't go anywhere, I don't think. Not that I know.
Yeah, no, that's interesting, because there is a lot of value you're putting in it, and a lot of yourself in. I mean, you're doing it with passion, I guess, and that would really help a lot, like all the biohacking community, to understand one another, because as we say, we interact in forums, but we have completely different lives and we don't know each other, so we have to kind of share all of this. So it would be really cool also to stay in touch for future things. If you say you do this, you do all of your stuff, and then maybe it sits there in a drawer for years. I mean, that would be nice to share it and have some feedbacks for us as well. It's really important that you're doing this, because
I'm going to. I want to. If I can, I'd like to share it. But I'll see what I get out of it. But seeing the responses are really interesting, because you get lots of different types, very different types of people, and people that aren't very connected, as you said. Like it's all kind of online, or the one thing I found, there's almost no women or like non-binary people. It's quite limited on that. It's been quite a
I am non-binary today.
Oh, okay, perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Technically intersex, but technicalities are bullshit. So yeah, that's why I mentioned them as well.
Okay, perfect. Because that's important for me, because I feel like my research is kind of missing that a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's in the tech world. It's a pity because we don't have many girls, because that's where it gets interesting. Because to be honest, female brain, not to be like male and females, but female brain works in a different way, and it's more like open to see it creatively and forget about the technicalities. All these men are like coding, but they forget about like what really matters in life. So that's why I guess we need balance.
Yeah, no, it's great. Thank you for telling me, because it's important. Like I contacted a lot of women or non-binary people, and I not as much response, because there's a lot smaller pool of people to contact. But
well, if you can put that in the research that I am, maybe that helps me a lot as well, to go out there and tell to this tech community, hey, there are intersex people, there are people who don't care about this differentiation. So definitely. That will help a lot.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, thank you very much. Hope to stay in touch on a long term, because also as I'm working on these designs, like I think the biohacking community needs you to do some research and stuff.
Let me, if you have anything interesting, send it to me, and I'll.
Yeah, sure.
And I'm interested.
Thank you for this. It was great.
Okay, thank you so much. Have a good day. Sorry we were a little.
Yeah, you too. No problem. See you. Thank you.